Welcome to the Heart to Heartland podcast. Here are your hosts.
Welcome back to our podcast, Heart to Heartland. I'm Isabelle.
And I'm Soile.
We have a lot of updates for you, so let's just dive
Yeah.
right into it.
Since the last time we spoke, I received Aiden's package.
Yes.
And I did a little video about it, opening it on Instagram. So if you didn't see it there, or if you haven't checked that out, please do if you're interested to see what's inside. But yeah, it came in one piece, and it was the hoodie with the season 14 logo, and then there was this pretty thing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you got a frame for it. I love that.
Yeah, it's the script cover for his first episode, 14.
Season 14,
one,
episode
yeah.
1. One of the best episodes of all time. Yep.
And then
love
the
it.
Polaroid with Rick and Lou and the fan. Deleted scene that we're on the lookout for.
It was a deleted scene. Because I thought I was crazy for a second. I'm like, I don't think that was in I didn't realize it was a deleted scene. Anyways, Michelle, Aiden, and a fan. Coming up in March, Up TV is getting season 15. So that's exciting because everyone in the US has been asking that since the season has started. So that's exciting. Is that on for streaming or will it be on TV?
I think it's for streaming at first. So
Streaming?
Faith and Family app, if you want
Do you
to
have
have
to
it.
pay for that? I think it's like $5, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
something like that. I think they
Right.
sometimes have these like trials for new customers or
Oh,
so.
right. It's a week, I think, because I had Lisa check. So yeah, that's exciting.
So no date for that, but somewhere in March. And speaking of watching Heartland on TV, if you have Friendly TV, I think this is US based channel.
US? Okay.
Yeah. So it's written FRNDLY, Friendly TV. Yeah. So it plays Heartland 24/7. So if you're ever bored and you're like, I wonder what episode should I watch? Like turn the TV on and it makes the
So is it
decision
like
for
the
you.
channels just plays Heartland?
I think so. I mean,
that's insane. Like,
yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm not complaining, but that's cool. So the last few weeks on the blog, we've had some cool behind the scenes videos. One from Brett Van Dyke, who is director of photography.
Yeah.
I watched that video, it was very interesting. And then as well as Wayne Pals, who is the iconic script supervisor since day one, I believe.
Yeah.
So those are really cool. You should check them out on the Heartland blog.
Yeah, and we'll add the links in the description as well. So, and then a couple of podcast episodes. One with Amber that's like 2 hours long. I still haven't listened to it because I'm like, I need time to listen to this because, yeah. So it's called Journey On with Warwick Shriller. It's available on Spotify at least, and I think maybe probably in every platform you can think of.
I listened to like half of it this morning. Pretty good, so pretty interesting. And it wasn't like the same old kind of questions, and I actually learned something. So that was exciting.
And then Rave It Up did episode about love with Cindy Busby.
Yeah, so speaking of Amber's updates, she uploaded another Ramblin' Rides with Amber on her YouTube channel, which I always love. They're very interesting where she, updates everyone on what's currently going on in her life. So yeah, check that out, and that link will also be in the description below.
Yeah, in it, she mentions that if there is season 16, which looks promising at this point, they will start filming, or I think she said production in April. So I don't know if that's prep or actual filming, because that's early.
It is. It's normally like May or June.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think she must mean pre-production, but I mean, maybe no. She could be right. Maybe they're doing prep in like March or something.
Yeah,
because it takes a long time to prep.
And she's what's the producer? What's the
interactive producer?
No, it's something else. Well, something producer.
Oh, really? Oh my god. Oh, consulting producer.
Yes, that's the
interactive producer. That's triggering.
I was like, yeah, I was like,
oh my god, I didn't realize what I said. My bad.
Yeah, but so maybe she's like doing prep in April already, while the others are like I don't know. Sean has been doing some other projects. The short film called Theft, and he's acting in it with his son Shia.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looks kind of dark, and it looks like they might play either father and son or like different versions of
Yeah.
the same person.
Which, yeah, you guys have to check out like the trailer for it. It looks really good.
Yeah.
Really good. And it's always a hit and miss when it comes to like homemade short films, but this looks really, really good. So I'm excited.
Yeah.
So Alicia's film, We're All in This Together, is premiering in the UK, I believe, the Manchester Film Festival in March. So look out for that if you're in that area. I can't wait to see it. I personally haven't seen it either. So speaking of promo and stuff, I was watching the Leafs game on Sunday, I think, and Madison came up in this commercial for Questrade, which is like, I think it's like investment and stuff, like money investment or whatever. So anyway, she came up on my screen. That was shocking. She actually has like, you actually see her like a couple times throughout it. So that was cool. That was super random though, because it's like I'm just trying to like watch the game, and then she just like came up on my screen.
Did she have like lines, or was it just like?
No, she didn't have any lines. So she's a mother, and she was watching her, I'm assuming, husband and her son play from the other room or whatever, and you just see the camera go back to her just watching them a few times. So I don't know what that has to do with money investment, but
Yeah.
I just thought it was cool that she was in it. So
yeah. Speaking of kids, there was a big announcement last week.
Nobody saw this coming. Nobody.
Yeah. Michelle is pregnant with her third child.
Congratulations to
Yeah.
Michelle and her family.
Yeah.
It's so exciting.
I don't know, there's something with the way that she's been talking about, babies and I wish Lou would have babies, and it's like, oh, that makes sense, because she's probably been having this secret for how long now?
Oh, probably. She's showing fairly well, so she's definitely been pregnant for a while.
Yeah, so that's interesting. And as soon as she made the post, everyone was like, okay, what does this mean? Like, is she gonna be off from Heartland? But she said that she'll still be doing Heartland. I don't know to what degree, like depending probably.
Yeah. There was a fan comment who said, like, is Lou gonna be pregnant? To which, like, Michelle responded something like, that's up to the writers. Personally, and we've been talking about this, how I really hope Lou isn't pregnant, especially after the whole Mitch thing. So either we're getting another season 7, or they're just gonna try to hide her belly, or maybe Michelle's gonna be gone half the season, Lou's visiting Peter or Georgie. These are the theories going around in my head, because if she's like, I don't know how far along. Didn't she say how far along she is? I think she's like halfway, right?
Let me check.
Because maybe by the time she gives birth, it's going to be close to when they start filming, if not like a few episodes in. So it's even if she's missing, it wouldn't be long.
Her announcement post has the hashtag second trimester.
Oh God, right. That's why I couldn't figure it out, because that's still
I have really no idea.
No idea what that means. So I'm gonna say I know nothing about this, but looking at her belly, I'd say she's fairly close, like a couple months left. I don't know. I know nothing about children. So.
Either Peter has gotten busy, or Carl and Rick are trying to find a surrogate, or
oh my God, yes. I remember you telling me.
Or
that's funny.
Nothing's coming out of it. It's just like a lot of laundry baskets and sitting behind her mayor desk or whatever.
Yeah, that's just it. Like season 7, she was holding Katie, so that helped. And she had like these big bags, which would make sense for a mother with young children. What's it gonna be like now? Like she's probably just gonna be like sitting a lot behind like her mayor desk, or like that's why I think that they're not gonna have. My prediction is she's not gonna be in like the first few episodes.
Yeah,
because she has to be on mat leave at some point, right?
Yeah, and
like,
I think
just a couple weeks, like she did for when Mara and Noah were born.
And I think casting twins is a whole another thing. Yeah. Like
People are gonna lose their minds because the whole reason Lou and Mitch broke up was over the kids thing. Because Lou
Yeah.
didn't want more kids, so it's just not a good idea if that's the way they're gonna go.
But I was saying that if this announcement had come after season 14, like if we would be between seasons, like season 14 and 15, we're left with, Lou telling Mitch, like, I don't know about this kids thing, I would be losing my mind because I would be like, okay, so they're doing it because it's kind of like
Yeah,
fallen onto their lap.
the timeline,
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's gonna be interesting because this also gets me excited in a way because like if there's gonna be no Georgie and Lou's gonna be prediction wise she's going to be gone for a few episodes, so that's gonna leave a lot of room for the other characters, which is kind of exciting. But I don't think that they're going to do that because Lou's a mayor, right? She can't be really gone that long.
Yeah.
I know politicians are really good at going on vacation all the time, but like I just feel like that doesn't really work. I don't know. But it's a small town mayor job. It's not like she's president, you know what I mean? So I don't know.
But I also wonder because we know that during season 15 mostly, but I think to some degree season 14 as well, they did kind of some parts of the filming in this like little chunks, like whenever Gabriel came around to film his parts, he did like all of them at the same time, and then they spread them out in different episodes. So I do wonder if they're gonna film some of the scenes later on in the season and then put them in the,
That's a good point. Yeah.
They can't film them too late because I'm assuming if they're season 16, they're gonna premiere it in the fall. So they could still
Oh my god, I hope so. I hope they don't wait until
filming.
January. I hope they don't do that.
Yeah, because that's a long time.
No, I know. That is a long time.
But yeah, that's a lot of questions in the air, but I think it'll be fun to see when
I wonder what everybody else thinks about this. What do you guys think is going to happen with the character? Because there's so many options right now, but it really, every time I think that I really do think that she won't be in a few episodes, it's like, how long can she realistically be gone from her job as mayor, right? Like, obviously everyone goes on vacation, but like, you know what I'm talking about when I ramble on.
If it wasn't for her mayor job, I think, it wouldn't be such an issue, but then it's like you can't just abandon your work for too long.
Well, and that's not just that though, like she has multiple businesses that she runs, which is crazy as it is. That's the similarity between Lou and Michelle. I feel like they're both like extremely multi-talented to have multiple things like this going at once, because if Michelle does end up directing, that means she's starring, directing, and has a newborn at the same time. Don't know if she's directing or not. I wouldn't be surprised, because if anyone could do it, it would be Michelle Morgan. So
I'm like out of breath just thinking about that.
I know. Well, like, oh my god, I remember like just absolutely feeling for her when she came back. She literally came back, I feel like a week after Noah was born, right? It wasn't long.
Like that.
Because she was only gone a couple episodes. That's not long. That's not easy on a new mother. I know that much. So I'm excited and happy for her at the same time.
Imagine if they would do something like, oh, she's gonna be away with Peter or whatever. If they're gonna have her gone for a couple of episodes, it's gonna be somewhat disappointing. I mean, I will understand, of course, but it's kind of like, because season 15 ended with Lou and Peter getting back together, so it's like, okay, we want to see how things are going. We just, we just want to hear about them.
You don't think they would make Lou and Peter have another child, do you?
I mean, I want to say no, but like,
I really want to say no too.
Because it's like,
I don't think so. It wouldn't make any sense. It couldn't. Like, I refuse to believe it.
I could see Peter saying something like, let's have a baby.
Oh, for sure.
But Lou being like, are you kidding me? Like, I broke up with Mitch because of this. Like, you're out of here. Or I hope, because then if she would be kind of like, yeah, sure, let's make a baby together, I would be like, really? Like with Peter, not with
I
Mitch?
know. Oh my god. That would be such, like, as if they haven't already insulted that relationship and that character enough. Let's just add right
adding,
on to it.
yeah.
Oh my god. But, do you think we're only getting 10 episodes again?
I mean, probably. I hope more, but
Oh, I miss my 18 episode seasons.
right. When we were planning the topic of this episode, we didn't know that Michelle was going to make this announcement. But interestingly enough, we're going to talk about Lou today and her main three men, Scott, Peter, and Mitch. I did this interview with Rachel. She's also known as No Context Heartland. So
the meme queen.
That's what I called her as well. So this is going to be a long one. And so that's why it's going to be in two parts. The first part is going to be like a lighter version of us going through the ships and basing them off your comments. And then we started talking about the ships in general, and suddenly 4 hours had passed and we were like, oops. The second part is going to be like a deeper dive. So if you just want like a lighter version of us talking about it, just listen to the first part. But if you are interested to hear more of our thoughts, the second part is also like about those ships.
Yeah, I wasn't there for it, so I'm listening to it for the first time as well as everyone else, and I'm excited. So thank you for Rachel for coming on. Do we bring her on now? Or
yeah, I think that's it. And the next episode will be posted the day after, so it's gonna be like you're gonna listen to the first one and then it's like, oh, the second one is already up. So enjoy the episode about Lou and her main three ships. Okay, so today I'm joined by Queen of Memes herself, Rachel, aka No Context Heartland. And the reason why I asked you to be our guest is because I know you love Lou, and I know that you have kind of like a love for every ship that Lou has ever had, or the main three at least.
I basically have so much trouble deciding what I like.
So I love that that's the starting point for this, because I know that if people have like preferences, it can kind of turn into a biased conversation. So
100%.
yeah, so I was like, oh, I gotta get Rachel to do this because, you know, I know that you have a lot of thoughts. And
I have a lot of thoughts. Also, I should preface this episode by saying that I did not do any prep. I was going to, and then I didn't have time. And so I'm just having to rely on my base knowledge of everything.
Yeah.
So if you say something that's incorrect, please don't revoke my Lou Fleming stand card.
Yeah, I was trying to do a bit of like background research for this because it's been like 15 years of, you know.
There's a lot of material.
Yeah. So I was trying to pick a couple of episodes here and there that I knew that were kind of big for Lou or her relationships. So I'm arresting myself. So we don't know everything. Yeah. Can you tell a little bit about your background with Heartland? Why did Lou become your favorite character?
Yeah, I read the books when I was in elementary school because I was a wannabe horse girl. I never got to really ride horses except at a couple of summer camps, but I really loved the idea of being a horse girl, even if I didn't make it. So I read all the books, and then when the show began, I was like, oh my God, this is exciting. I didn't really like Lou in the books. I think I was too young to understand anything about her. Yeah. And then when the show started, just somehow immediately I was like, I am drawn to this one. So she just became like the ultimate comfort character for me, and I have loved her since 2007. And basically every comfort character I've ever had from other fandoms has something in common with Lou.
Yeah.
So she's basically the blueprint. I just love her.
Yeah. I know that you're kind of happy with where Lou is right now, I think. you
I
know,
am
with
happy with where she is. I do wish a few things had been done differently throughout the last couple of seasons, but overall, I'm fine with this.
yeah. So I know Lou as a character is kind of like a big topic to cover, but I thought we could do like a conversation about her like main ships, because we've done these episodes with, you know, Jack and Lisa, Ty and Amy. So I thought with Lou, it's not as simple as, you know, with them. Because
Yeah, I think Jack and Amy both have very, like, even if there's ever moments with anyone else, there's
yeah.
always like the one that you come back to, where Lou has a few different eras, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Because that's the thing with me as well. Like with you, that I would have been kind of like okay with whoever she picked, as long as, you know, she's happy.
Exactly. I
So
ship Lou and happiness.
yeah, same. I thought it would be fun to kind of focus on the three main ships, I would say, like Scott, Peter, and Mitch.
Yeah, I feel like the others are really just like blips on the radar. No one
Yeah.
really has them as their favorite. No one's like, oh my God, I really wish Lou ended up with Nick or whoever.
Do you think that Lou has a type?
I feel like that's a tricky question because I don't think there's a ton of similarities between like the big three, if we're going to call them that, besides the fact that they tend to challenge her in some ways. They also tend to be the type of people who she feels like can take care of her in some moments. Like she's a very independent person. And she really prides herself on that, I feel. But she also likes to know that there's someone that she can fall back on. If she needs them, they'll be there. And that is I'm just going to talk all the time about how everything stems back to her abandonment issues, because 100% her entire personality is built around that. I think that that's really important for all three of them. She feels like they're there. And that's also probably why they all didn't work out at some point, is because she was doubting that. So I think that's mostly the type, is the kind of, she likes to have someone that she feels she can depend on. And I mean, yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, because I was trying to think like these three guys are so different. It's like,
They
but
are
at the
very
same
different.
time, they make sense with Lou. Like, what's the key to all that? But I think you nailed it.
I think that's kind of what it boils down to. I mean, the only other thing is like she likes tall guys.
I was watching the episode where, you know, Lou finds out that Peter is the old guy. And
oh my God, that is one of my favorite episodes ever.
and it's like she says something like, I thought you were gonna be short and hairy or something, and I was like, oh, short. Like, yeah. But I think it's refreshing that with Lou there has not been just like that, like, okay, that's the first guy she falls in love with, and that's the, you know, that's the rest of her life.
Because like in the books she ends up with Scott, and Peter and Mitch don't exist. But her and Scott like get married, and I think they have kids. I can't remember exactly because it was 100 years ago. But I think that they kind of worried maybe in the beginning of the show. They spent the whole first season doing all that slow burn with them.
Yeah.
But then I think they were maybe like, oh wait, we're keeping so much else close to the books, like maybe we should not funnel ourselves into this too early. And so they kind of worked out problems.
From what I remember, I think they were kind of like thinking about going forward with Lou and Scott, but then they were like, maybe we should have something, you know, in between. And then they were like, well, maybe this Peter guy. And then they were like, oh crap, they have so much chemistry. Like,
oh my God, yeah. They have so much chemistry. Like this, basically the moment they meet, I was like, hello.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder if that was something that they were considering, because I know that Mitch was basically going to be a temporary thing, and then he stuck around longer. So I wonder if that was what Peter was actually intended to be, and that Scott was still going to be the end game. And then they were like, wait, no.
Yeah. I think that could have been it, because when, you know, by the time that Lou and Peter divorced, it was like, well, you know, Nathaniel is doing other stuff. It's like, well, what are we gonna do now? And they were like, maybe this Mitch guy. I think that is probably relatable for many people, because you know, you don't always have that like high school sweethearts thing, or like your childhood best friend or whatever. That's something I've always appreciated about Lou's relationships, that it's not as simple and it's relatable and realistic, and it's not easy,
Sometimes
and
very messy,
yeah.
which is real.
Yeah. How is Lou when she's in love? Because I was watching these episodes and I was picking some like things that I think kind of follow her around when she's like falling for someone,
Yeah.
or
I think she gets ahead of herself sometimes, a lot of the time.
Mm,
And she gets kind of impulsive, and she just kind of like goes all in really fast sometimes. She doesn't really think as much as she's used to thinking. She's like an overthinker in general.
yeah.
But I think when she really starts to fall for someone, she just kind of goes past that and doesn't think about it. And then it catches up with her later. And then she has all her doubts.
That was one of the things that I thought about, because she likes to be in control in a way, because
Yeah.
she has a clear vision and she's very knowledgeable. What's the word?
Yeah.
So it was interesting to me to look at all these like episodes where she's falling in love or like having a first date or something like that happening, because she's kind of like, screw it, like I'm not in control, I'll just let my like feelings take over in a way. So that was
Yeah.
interesting to me, that it's kind of not necessarily like the opposite of who she is, but just that kind of,
She
you
kind
know,
of lets go of
yeah,
that part of herself a little bit. And I think that she wants to feel like that, and she wants to not always be in control. It's just kind of second nature to her.
yeah,
So I think it's interesting that when she starts falling for someone, that's like one of the first things that happens, is she kind of lets them take the lead sometimes. Or like even with Mitch, she was very much like trying to make rules and stuff because she was scared. But
yeah.
I think for the actual, when she's starting to fall for someone, she tends to try and let go of that to various extents and various levels of success. Sometimes it
Yeah.
works, sometimes it doesn't.
There were a couple of episodes that I watched where she's surrounded by the family, but she feels kind of, I don't know, like restricted in her feelings, like
Mhm.
maybe because they see her in a certain way, like as this like
Yeah,
woman who has everything figured out in a way. And
yeah.
then when there were like scenes with Peter at the Dude Ranch, when it's just the two of them, it's like she's like, "Ah, you know, screw them, like let's just
Mhm.
kiss." Like, even though I kind of know that it's a bad idea, but at the same time it's like it's what I want. So it was
Yeah.
interesting that, you know, she has this, I mean, I think it's like such a humane thing to show that she has this need for, I don't know, need for love. Is that the right
I think
expression?
that I think that does fit
Yeah.
because, like I said before, abandonment issues. She she
Yeah.
really wants to be loved romantically, platonically, with her
Yeah.
family. She just wants people to value her,
Yeah.
and it really affects the way that she handles basically every type of relationship with every different person she interacts with. And even the when she just is on her own and she wants to be independent and successful, like that I think stems from abandonment issues in a way too, because
Yeah.
she just wants to be good enough that no one's going to leave her. I think Tim leaving when she was a kid really messed her up.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much I wish we got to see flashbacks of before that, because I would like to know kind of what she was like before that. I assume she probably had little bits and pieces of that kind of pressure that she puts on herself.
Yeah.
But I want to know how much of it got really heightened after Tim left and after she went to New York and everything. But I think that really factors into her relationships, is she really just desperately wants people to be in her corner and not leave her.
To think that she maybe has hard time admitting to her family that she wants to be loved and needed, because
Hmm.
her family kind of hurt her. Like when you
Yeah,
think about like Jack, like it wasn't always easy with them, like maybe she felt
exactly.
rejected. And then with Amy, you know, she comes back
Yeah,
from New York and she's like, I don't want you here, you know.
exactly.
the conflicts between her and Marion, like, and then Tim
Exactly.
leaves. It's like she doesn't feel that anyone really needs her or wants her, and
I think that's kind of one of the things that really drew me to her, is you could feel like this hurt beneath everything, and she was really trying hard not to show that, and it just made me really emotional.
yeah.
But I think like even as she started to repair those relationships with Amy and Jack, and when Tim came back and everything, like there's always that kind of pressure that she puts on herself of, if I do something wrong, they might not want me again.
Yeah.
And that makes me so emotional, and she just needs so many hugs.
Yeah. And I'm gonna go back to this when we talk about Peter more, but I think like when I was watching some of the episodes and the back and forth, I was like seeing these two different sides of Lou. Like she was like, no, like I deserve better, and then Peter says something like, you're an incredible woman, and something like, and she's like, oh crap, like here we go. And she's like, "Oh, I want this, this love and this care, but at the same time I know that no, like that could be dangerous, like he could just leave and I could be like broken all over again." It's like,
exactly. I think she falls for people really fast,
yeah,
but then she has all these moments of doubt and second guessing herself, because she realizes she got so attached to them so quickly, and she always does this. And then I think she just worries that something is going to go wrong and that it's going to fall apart, like, and that basically has happened with every single relationship that she's had. She gets attached and then it goes wrong somewhere down the line, no matter how close or far away it is, and then she just like hangs on and tries to make it work, and then it doesn't. Again, abandonment issues. That's just like the word of the day.
because like I think it's like the most evident like proof of that is when Scott's like, I think we should take a break, and Lou's like, I think we should get married. Like that's like such an extreme like
Right?
reaction to something like that, but I think it
Like,
shows like, no, don't leave me, like I want to be in this, like.
And on some level, as an audience member, it seems so impulsive and so ridiculous. And you're like, why would you say that? Like, why would that be your go-to? But then if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense for Lou.
Yeah.
Because like I said, she's just gonna like hang on really tight, as tight as she can. She's gonna try and make it not fall apart in some way. And that was just the solution that was in her mind at
like,
that moment.
Pop.
So she went for it. And I mean, that didn't work.
With like Peter, there's always like him traveling for work, or him living elsewhere, and I guess she feels like, oh, this is like he has his one foot out of the door already, like I need to do something, and she's kind of like freaking out. And
exactly.
I think
I have so many thoughts about that. We
yeah
will get there. But I think that really comes back to the need for the dependability and everything as well.
And then Mitch leaves, and she's like, no, not this again. And
oh my god,
so there's a pattern, I would say. Like, she doesn't have a type, but her relationships have a type in a way.
Yes. It's a good way of putting it.
I asked people what are their thoughts about the 3 big ships, and I'm just gonna read these first, and then we're gonna go like deeper into analyzing these. So Dip said Scott understands Lou's emotional side the best. As she said, he always knew what to say to her to comfort her or calm her down. Unfortunately, he was too insecure and immature at the time and ran away from the relationship. Mitch, personally, I never saw anything there but physical attraction. Peter, he's drawn to the fiery side of Lou. He's the one who appreciates her intellect, her spunk, and her unpredictability. They have a lot in common, but instead of working with Lou, I believe he competed with her, especially after losing his fortune. I'm hopeful that they will do better the second time around.
I think they put a lot of things very aptly. What was the thing about Scott? Let's do Scott first for that one. So I think he does really understand her emotional side. I think that's very accurate, especially since they were friends first and for a long time. And obviously it was when Scott like lived in the loft or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so they were around each other when they were both at a very vulnerable time, I think, because that would have been after Tim left, and it would have been when Scott was just like kind of getting his life together. And so I think that they really probably saw a lot of each other's emotional vulnerability and
and I think
damage,
Scott
for lack of a better word.
Scott understands the like family ties and the history
Yeah.
and everything like that, so she doesn't have to
Yeah.
like pretend to be something she's not. Or
Exactly. And then I think when she went to New York, I guess they lost touch for a bit, but he understood why she was going to New York and he understood why she was coming back and what that meant for her. And then obviously there was that whole time when they went to do the karaoke and then she told him that she got fired from her job and stuff. Like he just was there when she needed someone to talk to all the time. And even when she was married to Peter and then he came over and she was the whole thing about like, you're an Alberta girl, like when he just saw that she wasn't happy in Dubai, I think he was basically the first one to get that. And so I think that he really understands her in a way that she needs. I really wish that they were friends after they broke up so badly,
because that's such a important relationship for Lou, like
exactly.
not even the romantic side, like that's just having that someone who understands you on such a deep level.
Exactly. And I think that their relationship ended in a pretty messy way, but I would have liked for them to take some time and then after, when he came over and they were on the porch and he was saying that he should have come to her wedding and he was sorry he didn't come. I really wish that had been the start of like rebuilding their friendship, but I think that they kind of let it go because obviously Nathaniel wasn't available a ton of the time and he was kind of in and out of the show, and his thing became a lot about coaching Ty to be a vet. But I really wish that we had gotten to see them rebuild their friendship and get a connection again, because I really thought that was important for Lou. But I think that puts it pretty accurately.
Yeah. I watched the episode where they broke up, episode 4 of season 2, just to kind of remind myself, because I was like, wait a minute, like why was Scott blaming Lou about like not making time when he was like doing all that stuff? And
he was literally on call and had to leave.
Yeah.
And you don't make time for me, like, sir.
Yeah. There were, I mean, I can understand that, but at the same time, I felt like when Lou was calling him out for the same reason, he was, being kind of rude. I'm not having this conversation, like we have to take a break, which, can be good if you're like, yeah, I guess that's true, and I don't know how to respond that. But then they never really came back around to.
I would have liked if they had addressed that more. And I think that he was kind of insecure and immature about it. And they were both so young. What were they, like 23, 24 or something? Like that, they're not, and it's like their first very serious, I know she was with Carl, we're not going to talk about that. But it's kind of like, at least for Scott, as far as we're aware, his first very serious adult relationship. I don't know, what was that girl, April, on his reservation, but I don't know when that was a thing.
Yeah, true.
I don't know if it was before Lou or after Lou, but either way,
I don't remember either.
I think, I don't know if they said for April, but I think Lou was his first very serious adult relationship. And I think he kind of put her up on a pedestal in some ways, because he just figured she was totally out of his league. Which, I mean, I consider Lou to be out of everyone's league, but
that's besides the point.
That's not the point.
Yeah.
I think that he did kind of sabotage it in a way.
I mean, it's such a shame that we didn't really get to see Scott's side of it, because I think there's a lot of reasons for him to do that.
There's a lot of, he's got a lot bottled up inside him, I feel. Like we meet him in season 1 when he's already gotten his life together, but we know that he was kind of a disaster before. And that stays with you. So I would like to have gotten to explore that more in the show. Obviously, the show mostly focuses on the family, and he's just like a side character. Like, obviously, we don't get to see as much of Peter's side or Mitch's side as well.
Yeah.
We mostly stick with Lou and the people around her.
Which is a shame, because, like, to imagine if Scott and Lou have eventually gotten back together, like, what amazing stories they would have been able to tell through Scott.
Yeah, exactly.
And Mary Kay Catherine said, I'm Team Peter all the way. While the other relationships Lou had were good and enjoyable to watch, Lou and Peter were just meant to be. They had a family together and kept showing signs of love even after their divorce. I feel like they both were doing things that hurt their marriage, but they should have gone to marriage counseling or something similar to resolve those differences and make their marriage work. I'm glad they're back together now. It just seems right.
Marriage counseling. I mean, if this show did stuff with therapy and counseling, maybe they would have. But I feel like they don't do that ever. They just rely on the other family members to give them life advice, which is probably accurate for many families. I mean, a lot of families don't talk about those things, but some do.
I thought it was interesting that when Peter first started the respondence with Lou, he said something like, I'm ready to put faith in motion. Do you think, in a bigger scale, do you think Lou and Peter have always been meant to be? Like, what's that like?
I enjoy that idea because I love the idea of soulmates. I think that you can have more than one soulmate, but I do love the idea of soulmates, and I do really, really, really love the idea of a second chance romance where the timing wasn't right before, but now it is, and everything. And I think that Lou and Peter fit that very well, and I do think that they are meant to be in a way, and I'm pretty happy with the end of season 15 for that. Even if I would have liked some steps to be done differently along the way. I think they, what they said about showing signs of love, they always loved each other, and the problem was never that they stopped loving each other. It was just that they had to change how they loved each other. And I think the divorce and figuring out how to be friends and co-parents after that really helped them in a lot of ways. And I'm sure we will get more into that later. But yeah, I think that I like that person's thoughts.
Yeah, I feel like with Lou's every ship, she jokes about that song, she was doing karaoke that called Bad Timing. I think it's been kind of a theme in every relationship. And it's kind of funny to think about.
Absolutely.
That's, another thing she has common.
She was manifesting.
Yeah. So Stephanie says, Lou and Mitch, I have love-annoyed relationship with these two. I really, really liked their banter in season 9 and loved the will they, won't they. But then it became a constant cycle of them getting together and them breaking up, to the point where I couldn't enjoy their relationship as much anymore. Lou and Scott, I probably need to rewatch the show, but I don't remember loving these two. I'm so sorry to all the Lou and Scott fans. Please don't attack me. I just remember Scott complaining a lot to Lou about how she was always working and had no time for him. Again, I'm willing to rewatch that season with them and maybe changing my mind. Lou and Peter, I have so many mixed emotions about these two. On one hand, I really like them together, and I always felt like he was the one that Lou always loved. The chemistry between them is definitely there. On the other hand, I feel like the drama and the lack of communication in some seasons made me not like them as much as a couple. And it got tiring seeing Lou so heartbroken over him. At the end of the day, I want both characters to be happy, whether that's with each other or not. So basically, I don't have a favorite ship, so I'm Team Lou.
We are all Team Lou. Yeah, I think Lou and Mitch, they did have a lot of on again, off again, and that cycle. And I understand that would be frustrating for a lot of viewers. I personally enjoyed it most of the time because I love a hint of toxicity in relationships, I guess.
Yeah.
I think they were just very interesting, and in some ways it was very different from the other relationships. Obviously, there was a lot of similarities because it kind of boiled down to Lou self-sabotaging sometimes. But
Yeah.
I think that their banter and the fact that, especially near the beginning of their relationship, when they kind of didn't like each other, but they also did. And I think that was kind of fresh for a Lou ship.
Yeah, I think that
yeah.
Mitch's kind of mischievous attitude was kind of what
Yeah.
Lou needed at the moment to kind of shake
Exactly.
herself up. Like, I've been married and now I'm single again, and I'm like kind
Exactly.
of set in
And
my ways. And then Mitch like, no, here
Yeah.
comes I. Like
And I think in some ways she wanted to feel a little unstable after the divorce. She wanted, I don't know if she acknowledged that she wanted this. I think it was kind of subconscious, but I think
Yeah.
that she enjoyed feeling not totally safe
Yeah.
and kind of throwing herself into that. She was very worried about it, but I think that on some level she needed
There's
that
a thrill in there.
Yeah,
like,
exactly,
about that.
exactly. That's, I mean, she was coming out of a marriage and it was the first time kind of dating anyone new again. I think that makes a lot of sense. Lou and Scott, I think season 1 they did a lot of the slow burn, and then they really only got together in the very end. And then we didn't really get to see a lot of the build of their relationship. We got to see them being cute for a couple episodes in season 2, and then they broke up so fast. So they spent like 2 episodes being cute and then 2 episodes building the breakup, and then they broke up. I would have liked to see more, but I think that makes sense. Like, some people don't really connect as much with Lou and Scott as a ship, and I think that's kind of why.
Yeah, because there's not a much to kind of fall down. It's kind of this like idea of knowing each other since they were kids. Like, if we would have seen them as teenagers or whenever Lou met Scott for the first time, I think the attitude would be different. It would be like Lou's with Scott, like no other ships.
Because we would have seen a lot more of them.
Yeah.
If the show had, for instance, like the show started when Amy was 15, but if the show started when Lou was 15, I think Lou and Scott would still be together because they would have basically been like the Ty and Amy, because Amy would have been too young.
Yeah, I think for the most part, like we would have just seen like Amy starting to date Ty from like when she was like 25 or something. You know, the attachment wouldn't be
Totally
there.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then about the Lou and Peter, they said also like the chemistry was there, and on the other hand, there was a lot of lack of communication. Like, what do you think about that?
I think that's fair. I don't think they were really in a place to communicate, and they hadn't really learned how to do that properly. And I mean, we can't really speak for Peter because we didn't see him growing up or his background before he met Lou very much. We just know that he was married previously to Eden.
Yeah.
That didn't go well. But I think for Lou, like, we had only ever really seen her dating Carl, who I don't know what the communication was like there. She seemed to not tell him a lot, but I think that she was kind of pretending to be who she wanted to be when she moved to New York with him. And then Scott, who obviously understood her very well, and she didn't really need to communicate in the same way. She kind of didn't really know how to communicate in some moments with Peter. And then especially once he kind of lost everything with his business and he was kind of bottling that up, we can get into. But I think that really affected their communication.
Yeah, I think that was their biggest problem. I don't think like you said, like I don't think the love ever left. It was just like they weren't able to.
It just got hard.
Yeah, they weren't able to express themselves and work.
It was like the situations that they found themselves in. I mean, everything kept going wrong with Dubai and his business, and then the house burning down and being stuck in the house where she grew up and him leaving and everything. Like, it just got really difficult. And then for that plus the lack of communication or the difficulty in communicating, a bad mix.
I'm surprised they lasted as long as they did, to be honest.
Honestly, yeah, their problems dragged out for quite a while. I think that's realistic, but also they could have not lasted as long as they did. Maybe it would have been less painful.
like if Georgie had never come around, they might have ended up being divorced sooner.
Quite possible.
Yeah.
I think Georgie kind of brought them together in a way, and that was
Yeah.
helpful, and it did kind of make things better for a bit.
And it's like a couple of things, like with Georgie being kind of the glue that held them together, like when before they talked about, you know, adopting her, fostering her, whatever, Peter was like, oh, let's have a baby. Like,
oh yeah, I don't think that would have worked.
Yeah.
I don't think that would have worked. I think that would have been too much.
So in a way, I can see why Georgie was kind of like, in a similar way, the glue that kind of held them back
and also
together.
She was old enough that if they weren't like kind of a united couple around her, she would have caught onto it. And I think that that kind of pressure, maybe not healthy pressure, but I think that it did. That's part of why it kind of got better for a bit before it got worse again.
Yeah. But then later on, when Lou and Peter were kind of like going through the divorce or separation, she was kind of like, make it work, like desperate not to, you know.
Oh, and that's like a whole thing with Georgie and her issues because of her growing up before she arrived at Heartland. Is she finally got this family and then suddenly it was falling apart.
Yeah.
And that's like so tricky for her to handle. And I understand why she had that reaction at first.
Yeah.
But then, oh my God, that episode when Peter was back and he wanted to get back together and Lou was just having such a hard time with it. And Georgie was like, oh, just make it work. You can make it work. Why are you being selfish? And Lou was like, you're right. I am being selfish. Like, I can make this work. And I don't think that would have worked.
Yeah.
If she had gone through with that, like if they hadn't there was that conversation Lou and Georgie had at the end of that episode where Georgie said, like, I changed my mind. Like, we'll be fine. You need to do what makes you happy. And that's important. And I think if they hadn't had that conversation, Lou would have forced herself to get back with Peter before she was ready. And it would have been so bad.
Yeah.
For both of them. For all of them. Like everyone in the family would have suffered as a result. So I'm really glad that they had that talk.
Yeah, because Tim, in that earlier scene, he was like, no, you gotta do what you gotta do. Like, get back together with Peter. Of course, you know, projecting his feelings about, you know,
exactly.
the relationship.
Everyone projecting their own issues on the situation. And Lou really needed to focus on what made her happy. And then that conversation she had with Peter when she told him she didn't want to get back together. And she was like, I've been putting everyone else first. And I need to think about myself right now. I thought that was really important.
Yeah, because I remember feeling very sad for Lou, like in that situation, like everyone else.
Those couple episodes were really difficult to watch sometimes.
Yeah.
She just was such a mess, and I
just she was like thinking about the girls so much and like almost like putting their needs in front of hers, which, you know, a parent thing to do, but at the same time,
very noble thing to do. But also, if she's not happy, then it wouldn't have worked, and it wouldn't have been healthy for them in the long run. I think we got off track.
Yeah, but we have a lot of thoughts about this. Anyways, KCME said, you know my answer, Lou and Mitch, maybe history, but oh, what a steamy history it is. And then fire emojis with heart emojis.
Oh my God, I have talked to her about Lou and Mitch. Yes.
Enough said. Someone said, Janie Lawrence said, Peter ruined her life. She belongs with Mitch. Strong opinions.
I feel like if you don't like Peter, that is going to be your opinion. I see a lot in Peter that I think is there if you look for it. I don't think that he ruined Lou's life. I think they were just going through a lot, and it was very painful for both of them when they broke up. There was still that love there, which made it even more difficult. I think that some Lou and Mitch shippers, and even some Lou and Scott shippers, tend to discount what Lou and Peter had and what they have still. And I think that their relationship is really important, and it really builds a lot for Lou's character and for Peter's character as well. Even if you don't ship them, I think that's really important.
And I think overall, like, I know hard to watch that kind of relationship, but at the same time, as a piece of TV drama. It's
Yeah.
it's kind of powerful because usually relationships are always like perfect, and then the characters kind of stay in this like linear line. But with Lou and Peter, it was kind of like they went to the deep ends, and we got to see a lot of like internal struggles and all that kind of stuff, which we wouldn't have saw.
I think they're really real as a couple. Like,
Yeah.
even when their marriage was kind of falling apart, I thought that the writers and Michelle and Gabe especially really handled it in a very realistic way, and their fighting was, oh my God, it's so hard to watch. Usually when I do rewatches, I literally just skip season 8. I literally just skip it like half the time because I just can't. It puts me through so much emotionally. But I think that they did like a fantastic job portraying that. It's a very real, like, I mean, I think a lot of TV shows tend to just kind of fall back on the drama of like an affair or I don't even know what else. There's a lot of like cliche things that they fall on. And I think that Peter and Lou kind of went through things that aren't always seen and portrayed on TV.
Yeah. And I think the fact that, because Lou is the main character, but I think her relationships have never been treated in a way at the level of like Amy and Ty, where you kind of see both sides. I think.
Oh, absolutely. Because Amy and Ty were both main characters, so they got a lot more focus on both sides of their relationship.
So I think that gives them much more freedom for the writers to kind of be like, okay, what kind of story do we really want to tell?
Yeah.
Because we don't have to kind of please the majority of the audience to kind of give them this like fairy tale romantic kind of love. It's just like what is this relationship like?
Exactly. When Ty and Amy are going through a difficult time, like obviously they broke up a couple of times throughout the show. Yeah. And you kind of had to understand and support both of them in some way for the show to continue, basically. Yeah. And for Lou's ships, when they fall apart a little bit, even if it's temporary, they really only need to show us Lou's side. So that's interesting.
Yeah. Then Alice Turini said, Lou and Peter, despite the problems, they were always very partners. Their love was always there. I was happy with the ending last season. New beginnings.
Yes. Same.
Yeah. And then Lisa said, Lou and Scott, I don't feel I don't feel we really saw enough of to imagine it long term. However, as Scott was sort of the original boy in the loft, as mentioned, with Marion helping getting him back on the right track, then I feel it would have perhaps been odd doing Lou and Scott and then putting Amy with the new boy in the loft, aka Ty. Like the Fleming girls can only fall for the bad boys that turn out good and both turn into vets. Yeah, like that.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of the reason that Lou and Scott broke up in the show, is the writers were like, hang on a moment.
Yeah, they were like, wait, if Ty wants to be a vet, like, we can't have that. Anyways, Lisa continues with Mitch. I like Lou and Mitch, but also think Mitch was perhaps a bit too soft for her, perhaps too nice, but there was good chemistry. Do I therefore feel Peter is the right man for her? Not totally, but I always felt Lou's heart was with Peter. You can't choose who you love, and that's not always the best fit, etc. But your heart wants what your heart wants. So as much as I was Team Peter, for me, it was more because that's where I felt like Lou's heart was and would just love her to be happy.
Yeah. I think Lisa put that very well.
Then someone called No Context Heartland said, OTP, Lou and Mark.
No.
And then added comment, just kidding, I hate that. I commented that my real OTP is Lou and Carl. For legal reasons, this is also a joke. So what do you have to say for yourself about that? What do you think about Mark and Carl?
Mark, okay.
Let's just briefly touch on that.
Oh my God, I didn't like Mark. I thought he was the worst. I thought he was cute for like a minute, because like I enjoyed the way that they met when she was like, oh, I'm gonna have to tie myself to some train tracks, and then he was like right there. Oh my god, that was I thought that was an interesting beginning, and I liked that he liked her instead of thinking that that was weird. Like he was like, oh, this is cute. Like
I think it was interesting, see, because when Mark was first introduced, he was kind of this like, let's get this over with, and then Lou came around and they kind of started flirting, and he was like, oh,
it kind
I
of
like
allowed
this.
us to see a softer side of him, and I know he was only kind of like a recurring character for a little bit there, but I thought that was interesting, and I liked, I mean, obviously it was just like a rebound thing for her, and she just needed to kind of like figure out how to put herself out there again. Yeah. And clearly they weren't on the same page, because he was like, oh, we're not dating exclusively, and she was like, I don't know what that means. So obviously it didn't work out. I liked when she made him a mix CD. I was like, you're such a nerd. That's so I didn't ever think that they were going to last, so I was not surprised by the way it went. And I think that she again kind of got ahead of herself.
I mean, the mix CD.
The mix CD, she just was like really hurt after Scott and her broke up, and she just kind of threw herself into that and like let herself get hurt. I didn't think they were going to last, but I think it was necessary, because then obviously Peter wasn't the first relationship after, so she'd kind of already gotten that out of her system in a way, and she was kind of like ready to actually move on. Mark, I don't think he was important in the grand scheme of things, and that was a joke, but I think that it was important to Lou as a character to see that. Carl, I don't
not
like
to be confused with Rick's Carl.
With the Carl we like, but I don't like him. His episode, hilarious. Yeah, the comedy that man brought, top notch. He was very good. I think that he was important for Lou in the way that he represented what she wanted to be in New York, and she represented the life she had there. Him coming to Heartland and seeing her in this different element and basically not fitting in there was really important for us, the audience, to see her breaking up with him. Oh my god, when she couldn't get the ring off her finger, I was like crying. Little 12-year-old me was like, no. But I think it was important because when she broke up with him, that represented letting that life in New York go. Obviously later she went back for that interview, but I don't think that she was ever really seriously considering moving back to New York. I think she just wanted to go to prove to herself that she still could if she wanted to, and to remind herself that she didn't want to. But I think Carl was really important to show that kind of journey. It was like mid-season, right? And so I think that was important for us to see, but I don't think that they would have worked. I mean, I guess if she had actually only been in Alberta temporarily and then gone back to New York, maybe they could have worked, and they would have just been this like New York power couple. Or Chicago. Was he moving to Chicago? Chicago power couple.
We've heard about, Lou in New York, but how to show Lou's New York personality without, having to travel there. I think it was like perfect for that. And I think it sort of made Lou kind of realize that the more Carl questioned like her position in the family and, where she is, she was like, I don't agree with that. Like, I belong here. I've worked my ass off.
I think it kind of made her want to dig her heels in and make more of an effort to reconnect with like Amy, especially. Because there was that pressure from Carl to decide where she belonged. And I think he obviously intended that to mean that she belonged with him, but
it backfired
greatly.
And I think it was important, like there was that scene with Lou and Amy when they were doing dishes or something, and Amy was like, oh, you're going to Chicago, and Lou's like, wouldn't you like that? And Amy was like, not necessarily. I think she needed to hear that as well, kind of like, wait, like what's happening here? And I think
because I think for the family, even Carl represented the chance that Lou might leave them. And maybe some of them, Amy, especially in those first few episodes, really just like was clashing with Lou like left, right, and center. But I think that Carl showing up and representing this chance that Lou might go back to New York or might go to Chicago to be with him or might always be back and forth. I think it really reminded the rest of the family that they wanted Lou to be there and that she was helping and that they didn't want to lose her again. And so I think that was really important. I think Carl was a very important plot device. I did not like him, but he was very necessary.
And he was very like forceful about everything, really, like just like coming there. I think Lou didn't even know that he was coming, and then the workplace at Chicago, and like going riding and taking the horse that's not suitable for your like level.
And the proposal.
Yeah, and the proposal and the speech at Jack's birthday dinner, like, oh, Lou's amazing, and it was just like
read the room, Carl.
Yeah.
Also, Carl was important for us to see that development with Lou and Scott too. Yeah. Because oh my God, when Carl showed up and she like ran out to meet him and it just like zoomed in on Scott.
Yeah, he was
like standing there looking so sad. And that was like the first real hint, because you'd kind of guessed before that.
Yeah.
That he had feelings for her and that she might kind of have feelings for him, but wasn't totally sure. And I think that was important. Like when he saw Carl show up, he saw Lou run to meet him. He didn't want to go to Jack's birthday because he didn't want to like put himself through that. I think that was really important for us to see. This is where they're going, and this is what is actually real. Is you can tell that Scott has those feelings, and then it's just a question of whether Lou returns that in the same way.
And I think at the end of the episode, there was a scene with Scott and Amy, and they were like, oh, it's a shame Carl's gone, like all smiling. Like, I think it was kind of like, I don't know if Amy knew at that point that there's something going on between Lou and Scott, but obviously knows the history. But I think in a way it was like Carl was not approved by the family, and they were like, oh,
yeah, exactly. Phew. Oh my God. And then I also wonder, I mean, going off track back to the Scott thing, but I also wonder if what it was like before Marion died with Scott's involvement. Because obviously him and Marion were pretty close and worked together regularly because she had helped him and everything. But I wonder if he was around so much in the same way before Lou got back, or if that was like a change at all that Amy or Jack might have noticed. I just wonder about that. It seemed like pretty natural for him to be around.
Yeah, because he was attending like dinners and like when I was watching the episode with, Carl, and Lou was making that cake, and she was like, what did Mom do with the icing? Like, what's going on? Yeah, like it was so natural. He was like, oh, wait a minute, like there's this thing. And I was like
he basically used to be a part of the family in the first season, and I guess a bit before the first season. Yeah. And so I would have liked for that to return.
Yeah, I think the family...
After they got over the breakup situation, I would have really loved that, because I think I love the found family aspect. Obviously, this is based on a family specifically, but I like that they have like Mallory and Scott and Ty who become parts of the family who you wouldn't expect to be a part of the family. And I really liked that, and I wish that Scott returned in that way.
Yeah, and I think he was definitely approved by the family. Like even when they came back from the cattle drive in season 2, everyone's like, so did you have fun with Scott? And she was like, you knew? And everyone's like, well, kind of obvious.
Obviously.
So it made me wonder like what that would have been like maybe when Scott would have proposed to Lou, like everyone would have been so happy, and then HL Horses said, when I first found out there was a show, I was so excited to see Lou and Scott play out on screen because they were one of my favorite parts of the book. I was disappointed when it didn't work out, and I'm still sort of curious how they would have turned out, but I've moved on to her other partners. I actually liked Lou and Peter and thought they were cute, but never one of my favorites. However, I really loved Lou and Mitch, and forever mad how the writers did them so dirty with all the back and forth. We may never know what happened behind the scenes for why Kevin left the show or if it was his choice, but I would be curious to see what happened, especially since they were going to get married. I just wonder how much of When Calls to Heart had to do with it, especially since he didn't end up becoming the lead man there.
Poor Kevin.
Yeah.
Been so dirty on 2 shows.
Yeah. He's like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah,
he's been typecast.
Yeah. He's like, this is not in my contract.
Yeah.
What is this?
Yeah, that's so fair. I wonder what it would have been like if Kevin had been available more frequently, and I think that that's largely the reason that Lou and Mitch didn't work out, is because of his availability, and then the difficulty of going back and forth between different sets for COVID likely is the reasons. But I would have been really interested to see how Lou and Mitch would have moved forward. I think I have a lot of thoughts about the engagement and how that was done, which we can get into. But it would have been really interesting, and I would have really liked to see. I mean, I would have been happy with anything, basically. Going into season 15, that's what I always said, is if she ends up with Peter, Mitch, Scott, someone new, I don't care. I just want her to be happy. But the main options at that point were Peter and Mitch, and I would have been good either way.
For me, the way they kind of tied Mitch with the family, like he also had like scenes with Amy, Jack, Tim, all that, which is not something that Peter always necessarily had. Like
That's true.
But I think, that to me showed that they were kind of building up to something.
Yeah, I think Mitch did get more involved with the family, and that's partially just because he worked there and was around and part of that world in a way that Peter wasn't. Peter was like the businessman. He was the enemy in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And I think that they kind of leaned on that for his relationships with the rest of the family, is especially when he had scenes with Tim, is there was always that kind of underlying conflict. And obviously that existed with like Mitch and Tim, for instance, but it was different the way that it was done, because the underlying conflict was not a general distrust or dislike. It was more just Tim being protective of Lou, especially after how she had gotten hurt with Peter. But I think that Mitch was definitely more connected to the family, and that was very interesting to see how he fit into that. I would have liked to see more, obviously. But
then Orly, HL said, Lou and Scott, they were perfect for each other, but it was the wrong time. I don't understand why the writers made them together for break them after only 2 episodes of dating. But even when Lou was with Peter, Scott was always here for her. I like Peter, but I'm not sure why they getting back together in the last season. I don't see the point. Nothing changed. They got a divorce for something. And for Mitch, I don't like him with her. Glad he is gone.
I mean, fair, to each their own.
Do you think that for Scott, Lou is kind of the one that got away? Or like,
I like to think so. I just like get that vibe. I think she's definitely kind of the one that got away, or like there's always going to be that love for her. I think that I don't know that he was that for her. I think it was a little lopsided. Obviously she did love him, but I don't know if it lasted in the same way. I think like even the high school reunion episode, and like they have that kiss and that moment, and it was just like, obviously it turned out that he was like kind of dating someone, and he was like, it doesn't have to be a big deal, and she was like but I think that it kind of speaks to like there, even though he wasn't available, there was still that moment where he was like, I'm in this. And you could tell that there was still feelings there. And I think for her, she was just kind of like, a little tipsy and emotional and feeling lonely. So that kiss surprised me. I did not see that coming.
I was so shocked to begin with, like, oh, a high school reunion and Scott's there. Wait, what's happening? Like, what? But I think even before that, I always, because people were like, Lou should get back together with Scott. I was like struggling with this thought that Scott's been kind of waiting, like, oh, break up with Peter break up with
Oh,
like
yeah.
Mitch and all
I
that.
mean, I think he kind of always had feelings still, like even if he didn't totally realize it, because like with the plane crash thing, when he was like talking to Ty and he was like going a little crazy, and I was
Yeah.
like, yeah, I never should have let her go. Like that moment really spoke a lot to me. That was more close to the breakup, but I
Mm,
think that he kind of, I mean, when you go through a near death experience, there's a lot of things that you realize in those moments. And I think he kind of figured it out at that point. And then there was like, he couldn't go to her wedding.
yeah,
I mean, we saw with Peter when he couldn't consider going to her wedding, we saw what that meant. And maybe Scott didn't say it, but maybe it was the same kind of thought.
I think so.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think she's the one that got away.
Before season 11, I was kind of like, I don't know like how to feel about that through like Scott's character, like just waiting and then Lou's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, like let's get back together. Like I think
Yeah.
for it to have been more meaningful if they had got back together after
Yeah.
that reunion kiss, it would have needed something more from Lou.
Yes.
So it wouldn't have been
100%.
so like, oh, like let's get get back together. Like I'm so desperate for your love. Like I'll do anything.
Yeah,
Like
I think Scott deserves better than that.
yeah. So I was kind of like, okay, I'm glad to hear that he's going out with someone and he's like ready to kind of face all
Yeah.
this. Like it's not gonna happen, but like I want you to be happy anyway, and
Yeah.
you're amazing, and just like make yourself happy. Like that's the most important thing, and I think that
Exactly.
was
And I think that speaks to their
needed.
friendship too,
Yeah.
is above all else, he cares about her and her happiness.
So I think that episode was needed to kind of give that some kind of ending.
They never really got closure before that,
Yeah.
honestly. So I think that was necessary. It was many years later than I would have liked,
Mm,
but
but not
yeah.
complaining. So Dom Burrell said Scott never likely to last beyond high school. Peter a lapdog, not strong enough for Lou, and Mitch no personality and too weak for Lou. So I guess they're Team Lou.
Very opinionated.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't agree with that, but I mean, everyone has their own interpretations of what's happening on screen and the characters. Obviously, a
Mm,
lot of what I feel about, like Peter, for instance, we don't get to explore much of Peter on screen, but I
yeah.
have a lot of feelings about what he's like and everything. I mean, everyone gets that different interpretation.
Yeah.
There.
And it's interesting to think about because, I think there's some truth to this, like the way I see it, but at the same
Mhm.
time, I wouldn't like just see it as narrowly as
It's a very blanket statement,
yeah.
basically boiling their entire relationship and entire personality down to one sentence, which I think is kind of why it comes across so opinionated.
Yeah.
Maybe if there'd been more words and more space in that comment, then we would have got some more thoughts as well, but fair.
Then one last comment from Amber Marshall fan. I like Lou and
For a second,
Mitch.
For a second, I thought you were just going to say the comment was from Amber Marshall.
She's like, I have opinions. Like, I've been watching this closely, so yeah.
Amber Marshall fan. Okay, we got this.
Yeah. I like Lou and Mitch. They had a natural chemistry that made it more believable. I know he left for a bigger role in When Calls to Heart, but the way it ended was so lame. At this point, I hope someone new comes along. Lou and Peter have never wanted to be in the same place. They will never work, and all it does is hurt the kids and the family. I don't like that they are redoing that unhealthy relationship. Do you think that things have changed between Lou and Peter?
Between Lou and Peter.
Yeah.
I think so. I think that their time apart as being a divorced couple and co-parenting and working out how to be friends really helped them. I think they obviously had a lot of communication issues, and that was the main thing that went wrong with them. And the main underlying issue, even across they had all the different situations happening, but the main thing that made those situations so difficult was the lack of communication. And I think that they've come a long way in that regard. They've worked out how to co-parent when they don't live in the same place. They've worked out how to deal with issues. They've worked out how to handle them dating other people, like when he was with Jen and she was with Mitch. And I think that I think they've just like had a lot of growth. I would have liked to see them talking more about that during season 15.
Yeah.
And you and I have discussed that in great detail. But
Yeah.
I think that they've come a really long way, and I think that this could really work. Yeah, I think they just have to figure out how to keep all of that they've been working on for the past several years, and then add back in being romantically involved with each other, because that is going to be the hardest adjustment for them.
Yeah, because I'm like nervous, like what's gonna happen. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, I'm keeping my mind open. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. Like, maybe they somehow set it up differently. Like, we'll see.
I think the main thing that people are concerned about is that there's no indication of Peter moving back. And that's partially due to Peter's job and partially due to Gabe not being available full time, which is very fair. I think that they can handle it better this time. What I would like to see if we get a season 16 is I would really like to see within the first few episodes a big issue come up where they really start to fall back into old patterns of the arguments, and they kind of get a hint of like, you know, the season 8 of it all. But then catch themselves and think, hey, we need to handle this differently and talk about it better, figure out how to handle it in a different way. I think it would have been kind of cheap for him to move back. I wouldn't like that personally.
That's a fair point.
Because then it would have been like, well, what was the point of them getting divorced because he didn't want to move back, spending all this time working out how to be apart, and then he just moves back in the end anyway? I wouldn't like that personally. I think it's more interesting to see the growth over time. And so I would really like to see, if we get a season 16, them start to fall back into that pattern and then catch themselves and work out how to do it better.
And it's such a shame that they only got back together in the last episode, because we don't get to see Georgie's reaction, and there's gonna be
I want to see Georgie's reaction so bad.
Yeah, and if there's season 16, like it's been months at that point, so it's like, oh, we always miss these like such important moments.
Yeah, really key moments that I would really like to see. I'm glad that we got to see them telling Katie.
Yeah.
But I really would have liked to see them telling Georgie too.
Yeah. But then there's one more comment from Tumblr, from Smoking Holsters. Not enough room for this on Instagram, so that's why he sent it.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah, it's gonna be a long one, so buckle up. I ship Lou with none.
He has a lot of opinions.
Yeah. I ship Lou with none of the above, really, but probably Scott would have been best for her, I guess. I never liked Peter and thought the way they handled the whole getting over he wanted to blast holes at the ranch was bullshit. When they caught Peter's guys with the downed fence and actually blowing holes on their ranch, that should have ended it as far as I'm concerned. It seems he basically bribed his way into the family with a tractor clearing the way to the fishing cabin when the check he handed Lou failed. He's not changed one bit, still in the oil business. I thought Mitch was a great shift for her and thought there was a chance, but the whole Lou at 41 should have a baby was just stupid. By the way, this was sent in before Michelle's baby. Yeah. At least Scott was true to himself, and I'm sure would have been fine with Lou being a mayor, owning Maggie's and the Dude Ranch. He balked at long-distance relationship with her, pining to be back in New York, which was understandable and true to a character. So what do you think about Lou and Peter starting off with the oil thing and then it's just disappearing?
I mean, hey, that's a fair point. I think that it would have been super interesting to see that develop more, because obviously they just kind of forgot about that plot once they started the romantic relationship. It really just they just threw it out the window.
Yeah. I
mean, fair. They're filming a show in Alberta, which is a huge part of the oil industry. And I think that if they had gone further with that storyline, they would have really caused a bit of an uproar.
Yeah, CBC would have been like, no.
Shut it down.
Yeah.
I don't think that that would have gone well for the show. And I think that that's part of the reason that they threw that storyline out. I would have loved to see more of it just as a viewer and as a fan of Lou doing things. But I get why they didn't go further with that storyline. And I think that they kind of just started focusing on Lou and Peter's relationship personally and the family working to accept Peter being around. And they kind of just stopped focusing on the oil industry much outside of that. So that's a fair point.
The episode where we meet Peter for the first time and Lou has that gathering, I think it was nicely made to keep the balance, because there was a lot of points about like why Bedford oil wasn't that bad, but at the same time Lou was like, okay, hang on, like you didn't address this and this, and it was like nicely balanced, especially with Tim making a point like that was something I did, like these like conflicts within the family as well. So I think nicely done.
I think that was really the only episode that they really focused on that oil industry versus the town and the farmers. And then the only other episode that they really focused on the flaws of the oil industry was that one where they went to the conference and Lou was talking to the group of wives or whatever, but which I thought was great. But yeah, I think they really decided to kind of peel that back a lot, which is, I think, a good business decision for the show.
There are moments in the show when I'm like, damn, they really went there. Like I'm proud of that. But at the same time, it's always kind of like they try not to upset people too much.
They do,
which is a shame to some degree.
I think that's fair, because if you think about where the show is set, where the show is made, the largest fan base of the show, it's a very conservative-minded group.
And maybe local, so
a lot of local issues, I think, based on, I'm not very into politics, but the political scene in Alberta, to my knowledge, is more conservative than most other places in Canada. So I think that it's fair that they kind of try not to step on too many toes. They try and keep certain issues limited in the show because of the large fan base and the place where they make the show.
While Hudson is fictional, they're still very rooted to it being Albertan. And
exactly, Hudson is fictional, but it's meant to seem very real.
So
it's not meant to be fictional. You're meant to think it really could exist.
Well, that was a wonderful interview with Rachel. So thank you again for taking the time to do this interview, Rachel, and thank you to everyone who's listened, and come back tomorrow to listen to part 2.
Yeah, and she was a great guest because she had a lot of thoughts and opinions, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, and her dad's gonna be happy about it too. So so I guess till next time.
Tomorrow, if you're nasty. Keep your nose clean.
And your powder dry.
And I feel like for many years, the only person that I've had to talk about this show to was my father. And he doesn't need to hear my fandom ramblings all the time. So you guys are really taking some of the pressure off that man.
he should send us a fruit basket or something like that. Thank you.
A big thank you. How much does it cost to send a fruit basket to Finland?
You can ask Aiden, because
I'll just DM him something. Like, I have questions about shipping costs.
He's like, triggered.